Hey, we're live now, and sorry everybody. I know we ran a couple minutes late in getting to the stage here. And Charles Reed is in the green room, so I just like saying those things. Anyway, we are Insights and Straight Talk. As you know, I'm Rod Duff, and we subscribe to the middle class. The entire show is based upon, well, a book I wrote, but well, I've got a manuscript, not a manuscript. I've got a business proposal for a book. It's about 51 pages. The book itself is about, God, I don't remember now, but it's a full book. The proposal has chapter summaries, which I'll be sending on a video about that in between these things that we have, the interviews that we have today. Well, and on at 1:30, we have Wendy regarding the her personal story, and you can see that in the notes on the YouTube. I only say that because we do a range of topics, as you know, finance, self-improvement, health. And Charles is an interesting fellow. He's got a lot of experience. He owns a payroll company. He's 70. Oh shoot, I forgot the exact age. He'll fill you in with all the right facts. Charles Reed is a certified public accountant, a U.S. court practitioner, a former member of the Internal Revenue Service. Ooh. Advisory Council, a Vietnam veteran, and the founder of GetPayroll. Mr. Reed's companies have provided full service payroll, payroll tax, and other payroll-related services. As we all know, if you do have a company, or if you're getting paid by a company, payroll is obviously a main thing there. Charles is an accomplished senior executive and an entrepreneur with over 50 years of financial leadership experience in his various industries, and the author of 4 books. I'm jealous of that. His latest book, The Payroll Book, A Guide for Small Businesses and Startup, is currently number 25 on the small business books section in Amazon. So I'm really excited about this interview today. One thing I'm excited about, we were talking off stage a little bit ago, and he's a 50 years experience, so obviously he's got some age and some road behind him, but energetic as heck. With that, let me go ahead and bring on Mr. Reed. I'm having a weird day, Charles. I'm mistiming my stuff. I was Mr. Reed, but I didn't click on the add to stage. How you doing this morning?
Rod, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
You bet. So you heard the intro, and you know it already, but question for you. You and I were talking about energy, and so you're a financial person, but you also have a lot of life experience. Tell me the story you were telling me about working out every day, your age, and let's start with who you are as a person, and then go into your business.
Sure. Well, I'm 75. I work out 6 times a week. I think that exercise is the fountain of youth. I do 3 days of resistance training.
Absolutely.
And 3 days of cardio, basically every morning except Saturday morning, because on Saturday morning I go play a poker tournament. So,
you play a Whoa! I didn't know that. You play a poker tournament every week.
Oh,
local friends or like your buddies, or is
at least no. I play. I file a
You're good
fee as a professional gambler on my tax.
So you're good.
I spend probably 1,000 hours a year at the card room making money.
Oh my God. $1,000 a year. So that's like that's pretty cool. I, on the other hand, figure out how much I can afford to lose while I'm at the casino, and never come back positive. I think I've earned a couple of bucks here and there once in a while in Vegas.
Please come to our card game.
Oh, I bet you would. I bet you would. Can you hear me? You good? My volume okay? I just realized my mic was a bit further back than usual. Yeah, let me think about that invite to your card game, though, Charles. Okay. As you see, we're getting some texts coming in already. Great start to the show. Okay, so thank you. Anyway, let me step back a second, and you tell us about you, please.
Okay, I'm a Midwestern boy. I grew up in Iowa. Iowa winters is why I put up with Texas summers. Believe me, I'd much rather be 105 than 30 below zero.
No doubt about it. I'm in Chicago.
I won't go there in the winter. Last time
I know.
30 years ago, I was in Chicago in January. I won't go back in January.
Ooh, that's terrible.
I grew up in Davenport, Iowa, so close.
Yeah.
Yeah. And graduated from high school at 16. Went to the Marine Corps at 17.
Whoa. You graduated high school at 16?
Skipped a year.
Yeah, okay, that's a year. Yeah, I lost a year. I graduated it on my 18th birthday just by happenstance. Started kindergarten a little bit late. But anyway, you started at 16, went into the service at 17.
Spent 4 years in the military, 4 years in the Marine Corps, 2 years overseas, including a combat tour.
Thank you for your service. Sorry. Thank you for your service. Go on.
Not a problem. Including a combat tour in Vietnam. Came back. I was stationed in Kansas City. Met and married my wife, Ruth. She was 10 years older than I was and had 5 children when I married her. I claim insanity, but it worked. We were married for 45 years until she passed.
Dang. Congrats. And sorry.
Thank you. When I got out of service, business did not value my military service. They didn't understand my training and my expertise. I was a computer programmer and systems engineer, as well as being a combat veteran. So I went to college, got my BBA, my MBA, sat for and passed my CPA exam while I was still in graduate school. Went to work for Texas Instruments. Spent 15 years in the corporate world, large companies, small companies, startups, turnarounds, wonderful experience. Lots of great experience. Realized in my early 40s, I was never going to run a major corporation. I didn't have the political skills. Unwilling to stab people in the back and toss them off the ladder. So
absolutely.
If I was going to run a business, and I grew up in a family business, my father had his, I was going to have to start my own. So a third of a century ago, Ruth and I started a business. Basically, I hung out my shingle and did payroll on the side, grew it, took on a partner, continued to grow it. About a dozen years ago, I sold off the accounting practice side to my partner and kept the payroll and I continue to grow the payroll company. We're probably the smallest of the national firms, but we're a national payroll provider providing payroll services to small businesses, startups, and individuals around the country.
That is awesome. I have a small company as well, besides this podcast, which I'm trying to grow into, an equitable company. Right now, it's just my other company pays me, and then I pay for whatever I need to pay for here. So payroll is a big deal. I've got a couple questions here. If you can read off your screen there, I put it on the screen. How do you see payroll management evolving in the next few years? That's actually a really interesting question, because with AI coming in and with the dramatic change we're going through and automation and this and that, do you see any dramatic differences? There's Bitcoin now. There's all sorts of financial and technical things that are creating a perfect storm. That's a great question. What do you think, Charles?
I've watched the payroll scene for the last third of a century, and technology has continued to change it. I mean, in the beginning, it was all manual. We took it by phone and we entered it in the computer. We still had computers then, but now it's all electronic, direct deposit. We issue very few paychecks per se, actual paper checks. Most of it's direct deposit. We move billions of dollars electronically.
Whoa, billions of dollars you move within your organization?
Yeah. We move. Basically, when we do a payroll for a client, we draft them for the entire payroll, pay the employees, pay the taxes, pay ourselves, of course, with our invoice, and pay all the government entities, file all the forms, and so on. So all the company has to do is report the hours to us. So payroll management for small businesses is not going to change a great deal. It's a matter of tracking the hours and the people and the rates and getting to a payroll company.
Yeah,
we will continue. The technology is going to continue to enhance. AI is going to do God knows what. We don't know, but we do a lot more payroll with a lot fewer people, a lot faster than we used to. So it's going to continue to improve, and technology is going to continue to change. And you got to be up on that. We are. We work very hard at that. Not every payroll company does. You get too big and it gets difficult to pivot on things. We were the first crypto payroll company. Okay.
I was just going to ask you that. Build on that. That's crypto payroll. That whole thing, because we're exploring that now. We
put in crypto. If employees wanted to be paid in crypto, we had multiple operations to be able to handle that. Frankly, with the Bitcoin crash here a year or so ago, several of our companies decided to get out of the business one way or the other.
Take a step back out.
Right. And we didn't find a whole lot of interest. We found a little bit, but not a whole lot. It's just not made its way into middle class yet. It's just not there. I think that crypto, particularly dollar-denominated crypto, has a real place in the future. I think Bitcoin is a speculative investment, and if you like to speculate, fine. I made some money off of it by accident, but I don't. It's like I don't recommend gold as an investment, as a hedge against inflation. Absolutely, crypto if you want to put 5% of your assets into crypto and see what happens, fine. If you lose it, you lose it. If you make money, you make money. But for my retirement, I'm much more in, I've actually moved more to income paying investments now at this point than growth and speculative investments. 30 years ago, it was all growth.
I want to get into that in just a second. And then why don't you talk about some of the challenges, and then we'll go into the investing part of what you do.
Which challenges would you like me to talk about?
Oh, sorry. It's on the screen here. Oh. What are the biggest payroll challenges small businesses face today?
The government is the biggest one. 75% of all U.S. revenue comes through the payroll system. So when they want to change things, they change payroll. So sure. You need to know what the biggest challenge for small businesses and startups is. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know what to do, who to pay, what to file, when to file, how to calculate it, all these things. My book goes through a lot of that, but any good CPA can help you with that. The next biggest thing that most businesses make a mistake with, 70% of them, is classification. Okay?
Of their business, you mean, or of the payroll people?
Of the employees, whether they're contractors or employees.
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, or overtime, subject to overtime or not. And these laws, this isn't a choice. You don't get to choose whether you pay people as a 1099 or not. There's a whole body of law that determines this, and the law changes. In the first Trump administration, they revised the law on independent contractors. When Biden came in, he threw that out, and late in his administration, put in a whole new one, which could basically destroy the gig economy. It was if your work was integral to the company, you're an employee. What company
Oh,
pays
even if
people
you're 1099?
what company pays for work that's not integral to the business? Okay, right?
That's true.
So
Yeah.
basically, if you interpret the Biden law strictly, the Biden regs strictly, there is no gig economy. Okay,
Oh, geez.
so I expect that to disappear with the new labor secretary here shortly, and the Trump one to come back in. We'll see what happens. But this stuff changes, and if you're not on top of it, and that's the biggest problem for small business is, and the analogy I use is when I grew up, Pele was the world's best soccer player. Wonderful athlete, okay?
Yes.
Recently passed away, but a wonderful athlete.
Yes.
But if you took Pele and you put him in a New York Yankees uniform at second base, he would be lost. He wouldn't know the game, the rules, pick up the ball with your hands. I mean, still be a wonderful athlete, but he'd be a disaster the first day at second base. You take a businessman, businesswoman who has a business, provides a product, a service, is successful, keeps clients happy, and now you say, deal with the IRS. They're Pele at second base. They're lost.
Yeah. Right.
And that's why we exist as an outsourced service. As every entrepreneur learns, you have to outsource things. You can't wear all the hats. If you try to wear all the hats, this is what happens. Okay.
Yeah.
So you go bald. So you start.
I'm going to shave my head next week in celebration.
Yeah. You put hats off on the other people, and you outsource things. And payroll is one of those things. Should be outsourced very early on. It's cheap, it's easy, and the penalties for not doing it right. I've seen businesses be put out of business because of it. So
that's a good point. The safety and not only do you have to put a lot of energy into that payroll activity, but you gotta make sure that as it's going out, like you said, there's no mistakes and so forth, because you can get penalized really hard.
Yeah, and Anita, the best tip for a startup on payroll efficiently, use a payroll service. It is so cheap. I always used one before I went into the business. It just makes no sense once you have an employee, period. Even yourself, if you're incorporated, use a payroll service. It's not worth doing it in-house. Once you get to 300, 400, 500 people, hire a staff, have the software. Yeah, fine. But, under 300 people, you ought to be outsourcing, period.
So you're saying if you're above 300, you have an internal person that's running all that, or would that internal person be also using? I guess it could be either way. Sometimes I'm going to ask a question that's obvious.
It could be either way, but it's what happens is there's always things going on in payroll. You got 300 people, you've got 300 specific circumstances. So yeah, you have to have in-house HR people and in-house accounting people at that size of a firm. So there becomes economies of scale where it makes sense to purchase the software and do it. But it's somewhere above 300. It may be 5, it may be 6 for your particular organization. If you're at 5,000 people, you're not outsourcing payroll.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And compliance, again, we talk to our clients literally every week. We email them things. We have white papers. We have videos. We keep them current on the changes because the stuff changes all the time. You've got 15,000 government entities that tax payroll. You have the federal government. You have the states, all the states for at least unemployment, sometimes, and then most of them for income tax as well. Then you have things like the Philadelphia School District taxes income, the city of Indianapolis, the city of Kansas City, the city of
Aurora. Wait. The school district, expand on that. You mean just there's taxes in but they pull it from like payroll?
It's an income tax. It's the school district of Philadelphia has an income tax on people who are in the district.
Wow. I've never heard of that. That's crazy. But go on.
And Ohio and other states, Pennsylvania, they have all kinds of local income taxes that you have to comply with. So
Yeah.
staying compliant on that stuff is a full-time job. And I don't recommend small business people try to keep up with it. That's why you have a payroll company, that you have experts that, my expertise, I spread over thousands of companies, so I can afford to spend the time and the money and develop the skills and the expertise, as does my staff. So my clients don't have to. That's why they pay me.
I love that. It's worthwhile too. While we're on this part of the subject, why don't you take a look at what Jax has to say there? And I know we talked about their issues when you're running payroll, that you gotta stay current and not make mistakes. But specifically, what are the top 2 or 3 or 4 or so mistakes people make? 5.
The first one that causes the most penalties is arithmetic errors. They don't multiply right. They don't add right.
Yeah.
Their forms don't add up. Use a computer. If you're going to do it yourself, use a computer. Don't try and do it by hand. Okay. At least use a calculator. Okay. That's the single biggest one. Now, beyond that, it's not knowing what to withhold and when to deposit it, not knowing what forms to file and when to file them. If you make a deposit 1 second late, it's a 5% penalty.
Wow.
1 second.
Wow. That's a big deal. That's a cliff you drop off on there.
And it goes downhill from there too.
Exactly.
So
yes.
If you went, I'll make it on time and then forget it, and all of a sudden the next month rolls around, oh shit, I didn't make it. Well, you may be looking at 15% additional on top of the deposit because you forgot to make it.
And it's not like companies run off of, there are different margins depending on what what it is, but that's what they're working off. If you're losing 15% of, let's see, payroll's typically what, 40%, that could be as high as 60, but of your total revenue stream, you're working with that. And if you take 15% off or so, obviously that's an impact.
Yep. It can be very expensive.
How do you handle complex payroll issues for larger companies?
Well, this is our expertise. We're compliance experts. I became a U.S. Tax Court practitioner. You may not know what that is. Most people don't. There's about 270 of us in the country. I am licensed to practice in U.S. federal tax court without being an attorney.
Ah. Wow.
I can represent clients in U.S. tax court. I can file petitions for them. I can appear in front of the judge. I can argue the cases. I can deal with the district counsel. I can do all these things. I'm trained, experienced, and licensed to do so without being an attorney. Most attorneys don't have the tax knowledge to be able to do this effectively. Now, there are tax attorneys, don't misunderstand me, that are very, very competent. But most attorneys, and any attorney, can get licensed to practice in the tax court just by filing. As a CPA, I had to take a test and prove to the tax court that I understood evidence and tax court procedure and legal ethics. It's a small book.
So that's how that came about. I was just going to ask that. I'm glad you did. That there's 200, what'd you say, 250 across the country, and they had to, this is how what's that?
270.
270 across the country. And I've never even heard of that. And there's a lot I haven't heard about, but that's why I do the show, because I learn more every time I listen and talk to folks like you. And but so, that's what you go through. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I have to go through that. They give out the exam once every 2 years in DC, and less than 10% of the people that take it ever pass it. So, but what that does is it gives me a whole capability of getting a whole nother bite at the apple. After I've expended all of the administrative remedies within the Internal Revenue Service, if I'm not happy, if my client has not gotten what he wants, then I take it to tax court. And there's no additional charge to the client. So we take it to tax court. That gives us a whole nother bite of the apple. And 95% of US tax court cases are settled pre-court, which means we're going to get a settlement offer no matter what. So yeah, it's a great deal for clients.
That is awesome. Let's just start clicking off some of these. I'm way behind on ones that are coming out, but what do you think about the rental doctor show?
It's critically important that payroll filings are correct. The penalties are immense. The last number I looked at was 19. The IRS issued $13 billion in employment tax penalties.
Whoa! Just in the year 2019.
Yep. $13 billion of penalties. Now, a lot of these got abated by people like me. Okay. So, but if you don't know what you're doing, your chance of getting abatement are effectively zero. If you send a letter to the IRS and say, I don't agree with this penalty, you'll get a form letter back saying tough.
Yeah.
Okay. It's only the third letter that you might get a real person. Then you can file appeals. And we had one case that took 9 years to resolve. They wanted a $95,000 penalty plus it with interest. Okay. And when I got done, I had to go to the deputy chief of appeals in DC and say, your people aren't calling me back. And she said, I'll have him call you this afternoon. He did. And we got it re-examined. And instead of a $95,000 bill, my client got a $400 refund.
Oh man, that is worth every penny of what you earned getting in there.
His attorney, who was monitoring this because they were, talks on wudgy about it, said to me, Charles, I kind of hard to believe that it actually happened, but if I ever run across this again, I'm calling you.
Wow. Great story, man. Great story. Let's see what we got here now. And sorry, I'm very much loving this conversation because your experience isn't just numbers in this, but the behind the curtain stuff that you're talking about is really useful for. Is everybody hear me? Right? I just got a message. You're good, right, Charles?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, sorry about that. So those stories are what make a difference in somebody who is giving you information. Dry, blah blah blah, monotone numbers is one thing. The experience that you have are things that I haven't heard. And I've had my business for few decades, and so it's not like I'm totally inept with or unfamiliar, but I've been around a little bit, as you can tell, right?
Yeah.
But
you're still Pele at second base.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, there you go.
I'm going to give your listeners a tip here, and this is critically important. The IRS cannot penalize you for a simple mistake. They can only penalize you for gross negligence. Okay? That's the law. Now, the problem is, who determines gross negligence? Well, the IRS thinks they do. They don't. The court does. So anytime you have a legitimate disagreement with a penalty, you appeal, you appeal, you appeal, you appeal, you appeal. Okay? It's a whole series of no's followed by a single yes. Sooner or later, you'll probably find somebody that agrees to you. If not, we take it to tax court. So don't just accept if they say, hey, you screwed up, you owe this money. No, you made a mistake. Okay, just pay the taxes. You don't owe the penalties, but you got to prove it. And that takes expertise. So, but they can't penalize you. They send you a penalty. Don't just say, oh, well, okay, fine. Now, if it's $10, just pay it. It's not worth fighting, okay?
It costs you more to fight it, right?
Once it gets into 3 or 4 figures, let's fight it. We'll probably win.
Very good story. Very good story. So as far as the cost controls, I'm guessing that this Discover connection, I'm guessing that this person is asking about them doing their own payroll. But what's
Right.
the comparison?
Okay. If you look at all the costs of doing payroll,
A lot.
software, facilities, computers, potential fraud, retraining, rehiring, all the things that go into it, and compare that to outsourcing to a company, outsourcing is a pittance in comparison. I did up an app one time to run people through this. I didn't get much play off of it, but if you really go through all the costs, outsourcing is a nit in comparison. So I'm in the business. I recommend it, of course. But if you'll really look at all your costs and your time, because if you look at the time you spend doing or overseeing or managing the payroll, and if you could have that time back to work on your business and grow your business, the cost of payroll is nothing. Besides, 40% of all small businesses get penalized every year. So if you weren't penalized in 24 or 23,
really?
you'll probably get penalized this year. You had a lot of mistakes. So in many cases, outsourcing is a profit center, not a cost center.
Very nice. Yeah. There was a line that you talked about how many employees that then you start to bring it back in and do it internally.
Sure.
What is the
minimum?
Yeah, there you go.
One
person.
It's not worth doing yourself. You screw up on a 941 that you forgot to file.
That's a big deal.
That was our fee for the year. Your penalties. Okay.
All right. That makes total sense.
How do you, if you really piss off the examiner and he decides to file a felony tax evasion case against you? Okay.
I think Trump can talk a lot about taxes and his experience with the law, right?
I'm expecting changes over the next 4 years, frankly.
I am too. I think a lot of us are hoping for changes, and it seems to be kicking off pretty quick, doesn't it? The administration is, the whole Doge, and they just cut off a bunch of IRS agents. They're reducing that number, and they're doing a lot of regulation that brings the cost down. What do you think Trump can do to help? He's got these different no tax on tips and so forth, which is great. But what do you see? Where's his place?
I don't think no tax on tips is ever going to happen, very frankly, because it's real simple. If there's no tax on tips, all my employees are now paid by tip. Okay. And me, I'm a tipped employee. Okay. My clients tip me. I'm sorry. Okay. So
I like that.
I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I understand it. When I was in college, I was a waiter. Okay. I understand that.
Me too.
So my wife was in the business for years, moved into management finally. But first of all, let's get a non-IRS lifer in as commissioner again. Okay. Somebody who's been in business. I was on the IRS Tax Advisory Council for 3 years. That is outsiders that come in to advise the IRS on situations. And we do up a report every year, a big, thick report. We look at all the various areas. We're separated into groups. I did small business because that was my expertise. And there's tax attorneys, there's CPAs, there's EAs. I was the only U.S. tax court practitioner on the panel for those 3 years, which didn't surprise me. And there are so many things. Chuck Reddick was the commissioner when I was there, and he was a tax attorney from San Diego, a nice guy, a really nice guy. And he had a different view than the IRS insiders do of what the IRS job is. The IRS is very insular. It's very DC. They live in their own bubble, which is why they use the advisory council to bring in outside points of view. Some of the things they thought were nonsense. There was a whole problem with 1099s that they were real troubled about, that it was fraud or whatever. And one of our members was from Uber. And he said, oh, no, because of this, this, and this is why we do it. And the IRS said, oh, really? And he explained the whole thing. So it's not a problem. And the controller for Uber said, no, it's not a problem. And the IRS said, well, mark that off the list.
Wow. I wish they'd mark more and more and more off the list.
Well, and that's why we have the advisory council. And Chuck really believed in it because he'd been on it earlier on and then getting brought in as commissioner. So there's a lot of things they can do to provide better customer service, make the IRS kinder and gentler. They tried that a few years ago. It was a total and complete failure. But when they are so insular and have an insular commissioner, it makes it more difficult on the rest of us.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Do you see Doge coming in? There's been a lot of talks about the IRS and so forth. With the new administration, do you see a great cutting of waste within the IRS? And do you see do you know do you think that'll happen? Trimming down the IRS?
No, they're civil servants. Okay. They're almost impossible to fire. Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping for, and Chuck was working on this, and the IRS continues to work on this, is technology improvement. Okay. Some of the technology they have goes back to the 1960s, IBM mainframes. So you've got 100,000 civil servants. You've got inadequate training in many cases. People get transferred department to department and have to learn whole new things. And then you have obsolete technology. You have silos that don't talk to each other. It's incredibly inefficient. And there's so many efficiencies that could be brought in. And that's what I'm hoping Doge does, is bring efficiencies in. Okay. It probably won't cut people dramatically, though over time we could have attrition without having to hire new people. But there's so many efficiencies in the tax system, which would lead to better, more efficient, and more complete tax collection. I think everybody ought to pay their fair share. We can argue about what the fair share is, okay? But everybody should pay taxes. It pays for the military, it pays for the roads, it pays for a lot of things. Is there a lot of waste and inefficiency in the government? Oh, absolutely. And I'm hoping Doge gets into that. Who's the Kentucky senator that has his Festus report every year?
Oh, yeah, I just saw that.
Ron Paul's son, Rand Paul.
Rand Paul, yep.
I'd love to see more of this, because having been around the government, we all see the inefficiencies. We all see the waste. We know there's fraud, and so on and so forth. And I'd love to see it getting more efficient and more effective. As far as cutting people, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, you've got everything from Jacksonville's asking about calculate overtime pay. And there you
go. I was just going to bring that up. Good guy. Good catch.
There's other ways to do that. And my suggestion is this. My book is available free of charge to all of your listeners. If they will go to the payrollbook.com, enter the discount code podcast, we will ship them free of charge a book my payroll book as long as supplies last. And that goes through all the various ways to calculate overtime and who's subject to overtime, family members, interns, contractors, all kinds of things. So rather than spend an hour trying to explain it, go to thepayrollbook.com. Now, first step in setting up a new payroll for a new business, call a payroll provider. Seriously.
Dude, I don't know what the hell I'm doing today. I just freaking I do this all the time and not this. I do this show all the time, and every once in a while, you stub your toe or something. But I'm just freaking, I'm just blowing it up on you today, Charles. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, it happens.
Yeah, it's happening. I know. The evidence is right now. I love it. All right. So what's the first steps in setting up payroll for a new business, Charles?
Get a payroll service provider. Seriously. If you really don't want to do that, go to your CPA and have him walk you through what you need to do, what you need to keep, what you need to have. I mean, you need to get I-9s on everybody. You need to get W-4s on everybody. You need to keep personnel records. You should have a handbook. If you don't have a handbook, you're just going to lose every unemployment claim that ever happens, because you've got to have that to establish the rules of how you can terminate people effectively. So if you don't know how to do that, unemployment claims are extraordinarily expensive, because they basically, the state wants to get back everything they paid the employee, which can be tens of thousands of dollars over 3 years for unemployment at times. So get with an expert. If you don't know it, read my book, and then call me or call one of my local competitors. I don't recommend the big companies because you'll get lost. But, I prefer you call me, but
100%, 100%. You're a businessman. That makes complete sense. I think now, as you're talking about getting set up outside of an outside payroll, let's step back, and the question could be, in setting up their company with a payroll service, say with you, how exaggerated or simple is that to do, and what are the steps?
At the first of the year, it's quite simple. It gets more complicated as the year goes on because of existing payroll data. But we have an onboarding system, and basically there's a number of things you have to give us as information: banking information, employee information, company information, so we can move all the money and pay everybody and file all the taxes. But we will also help you, particularly if you're a new small business, of getting everything set up and telling you what you need to have. You need, in this state, you need this, this, and this. In this state, you need this. You need this for all the federal stuff. We're experts at this. We know what you'll need, and we can tell you who you have to talk to and what you have to get and help you do that. And that's the matter of, when you don't know what you don't know, talk to somebody who knows so they can explain it to you and show you. That's the critical thing in starting a payroll, is you don't know what you don't know. I mean, if you're a CPA and have been doing payroll for 20 years, you don't need to talk to me, okay? Yeah. You know everything already, okay? Call me when the IRS screws up and you need a tax court practitioner, okay? But until then, that's fine. But most of us, until I get in the business, I used the payroll service, okay, in other businesses. It just made no sense to try and do it in-house. So, yeah. One other thing, you need a timekeeping system.
Like a punch card thing.
If you're not three people sitting in an office, if you've got a factory, you've got a production floor, you've got anything like that, you need a time clock. Studies show that if you don't have one, 10% of your time is wasted, is fraudulent. I'll just give you a perfect example. We had a imaging center, professional operation. All these people are educated, trained, sophisticated, lots of sophisticated equipment and so on. And I was talking to the administrator. I said, you need a new biometric clock. And she said, oh, no, we don't need that. You know, the clock's in the hallway in the back where it's not being watched. And I said, okay, Joanne, let's do this. Let's put a camera up there on the clock and let's see what happens. So she agreed. At the end of a week, she fired 3 people for buddy punching.
Oh.
They were punching in their friends in and out when they weren't there.
Goodness.
Okay. It happens all the time. People do this stuff. If you don't have a time clock, 10% of your payroll is wasted. That's average. That's what they show. That's what the studies show. So if it's you and Sally in the office, you're going to pay her 40 hours anyway. It's no big deal. Okay. She works late and she leaves early and you're comfortable with that. That's fine. But if you've got 20 guys out in the shop, if you don't have a time clock, you're wasting money.
No doubt. No doubt. Can you recommend any tools for business to streamline the payroll? Again, I'm assuming that we're not getting these questions from employee people. So small businesses here, and I'm curious did you read the next text? Is that why you were giggling?
Yeah. Recommend.
I know. I don't know what to.
Streamline payroll. Yeah. GetPayroll.
Again, same. Yeah, that'll do it. But what are some of the? Let me ask you this. I got an interesting question. I believe it is. What is the most an example that you have experienced that is? I know there was that one about $90,000. Is that the worst example of? Are the best example of doing outside, bringing in payroll from a company like yourself, or what's the worst case that you've ever seen or been involved in?
Well, stuff happens all the time. I've got one right now. It's a tax court case. We filed a client's W-2s online. Back in 2016. The IRS is trying to penalize them, saying they weren't filed on a timely basis. We actually have the receipt from maybe it was 19, that we have the receipt from the IRS showing they received the file and it was accepted. We have sent that to them 3 times. We have talked to them a dozen times. They're still trying to penalize the client. So finally, they sent the 90-day letter, which at the end of 90 days, you owe it regardless. You're to the 90-day letter.
If you haven't proven your case within 90 days, you owe it no matter what.
You lose. It's done. It's over. All your administrative and legal recourse is gone. So what you do with the 90-day letter is your ticket to tax court. So we filed a petition with tax court. Cost $60 to file the petition. That's the fee. We will get a call from district counsel here sometime in the next couple of months. And he's going to go, Charles, let's talk about this. And I'm going to go, whatever his name is, let me send you the proof. I'm going to fax him the proof. He's going to look at that and say, Charles, let me send you a letter where you're going to dissolve the filing with the tax court. And in return, we will absolve the client of this penalty. And I'll go, absolutely. You send me the paperwork that absolves them and I will close the case. And that's what will happen. It happens all the time. It's that additional bite at the apple with knowledgeable people that can get things done. So again, the IRS is 100,000 civil servants, and it's a bureaucracy. Bureaucracies exist to grow and to feed themselves. So once you get caught up in that mess, sometimes it's almost impossible to get out of. And that's where tax court, a tax court practitioner, or a tax attorney can be of real help. I'll tell you what, this happened just recently. A young man who did some summer work for his mother's firm, and it was $742.60. And they put that on the 1099 with the pennies. Well, of course, you're not supposed to put pennies on a 1099. So the IRS input that as $74,000 and started stealing the kids' refunds and state refunds and everything else. We sent letters. We got the tax court, the taxpayer advocate involved. We did a number of things. We fought this for years. This was the son of another podcaster, and I've been doing her podcast, and she said, "Hey, my son has this problem." So we got into it. I never made any money off it, but that's okay too. It was kind of fun. And finally I said, we've got two choices. We can either take this to tax court or write your congressman. So he wrote his congressman and got his congressional office involved, even though we'd sent letter after letter showing this. And when the congressional office called the IRS, the problem got solved. So sometimes you can do it that way. And he got all his refunds back with interest. So it was fun.
Wait, with interest? I know the IRS charges penalty and interest, but he got it back with interest.
With interest, because they shouldn't have taken it. And the interest was not very much because they don't pay very high. But because the congressional office was involved, they did it properly, because they had to report back to the congressman what had happened. So sometimes your congressman can actually be of service to you.
Let's hope that actually happens more often than it does these days. Currently, it's that's part of the reach of my show is, and it started with, I know we just had a new administration come in, and the last administration was ... But the entire House and Senate doesn't seem to ever be doing anything for the American people. They're doing it for it kind of benefits the American people, but way too often their priorities and what their focus is against, not against, is primarily directed towards things that benefit their own power and money, and not directed at benefiting the American people.
They're human. They're going to put self-interest first. We understand that.
We're talking big dollars, though.
Yeah, we're talking big dollars, but that
trillions.
From a political point of view, that is the best argument for term limits.
Yeah, no doubt. Or, you're right about that. I don't know if that'll ever happen. I don't know if anybody's going to vote themselves term limits when they got this gold pot here.
It's going to take a constitutional convention. Nothing else will cure it. Okay, if we don't call a constitutional convention to put in term limits, the Supreme Court has already ruled that the states can't do it. It has to be constitutional. So only a constitutional amendment is going to input term limits. And to do that, the Congress is never going to do it. But if enough states apply for a constitutional convention, they have to call one.
Oh, okay. So what's that? Do you know that number off the top of your head? What enough states is that? Half?
I think it's 2/3.
Yeah. Okay.
If two thirds petition the Congress for a constitutional convention, the Congress shall call a constitutional convention. It's never happened, and there's a number of states that have voted for it. So, I push that with my state representatives. I want to see one.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's kind of the experience that most people in the middle class have is, because we don't, and another way of term limiting people is, which is the harder way, or at least as hard. Some of the things I talk about on the show with people is, creating a watch party, for lack of a better word, where people come in and you have fun with it. I mean, you can have people dedicated every week to go to a football game, of course, and you get 90,000 or more people in a stadium every Sunday, I mean, all the time. So people are willing to invest their time, but it's got to benefit them. And what I'm trying to press in the message is for people to start really paying attention to the people who are running, not just straight down the aisle, Republican or Democrat, and then of course some sprinkle in independents. That's what I am. But what I am trying to find a way to get people to be more active instead of just saying, okay, and taking it. So it takes several cycles to accomplish, but in accomplishing that, all of a sudden you start sending a message. So if all the people are really making educated, let me put it this way. I have some friends out in California, and they actually sat down on a Saturday, different people, and they went over each bill, and then the congressperson, and they asked questions about each other. The best way to do that is with people in the room or on the YouTube channel, in the rooms. The best way to do that is to have people of varying different beliefs, because what happens now, right, is you listen to Fox and you hear one set of truths, and then on the MSNBC, let's say, you get another set of truths, and you get a bunch of talk.
You get
What's
another
that?
set of something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I said truths on both of them because, as you know, the media is, it's not a media. It's a extension.
Propaganda.
Yeah, it's propaganda. All right, my friend. What do you? We're getting ready to kind of wind it up and close it down, and I'm going to let you go. I know you're a busy man, and this has been a fantastic conversation. This has been terrific. What do you want to leave our viewers with on their mind as you? I want to just put this back out here, and I agree. So, give us your final thought there, Charles.
Two thoughts.
Perfect.
What I know close most podcasts with. There for all your listeners that are in business, there's never a traffic jam on the extra mile. Ooh. Go the extra mile for your clients, go the extra mile for your employees, because your competitors won't.
Hold on. Sorry. Producer Barbie keeps calling me. I don't know if you know the show, but I have a co-host sometimes. But go ahead with the rest of yours. She keeps calling me. So well, I apologize for the sounds coming in.
She probably wants to complain about me.
No, she wants to probably tell me how bad I'm doing compared to what she does on a daily basis.
Then the other thing is one I stole from Bill Gates before he went a little crazy.
He did. You're right.
People will overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade.
Wow.
Business is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're not going to be that unicorn, but you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish in 10, 15, 20, 25, in my case, a third of a century. So you just got to keep at it. Every journey begins with the first step. You just got to keep doing it. If you'll keep those two things in mind, business will be a lot more fun.
Yeah. I could not agree with you more. That's a great message. The stories are great, but that last statement you just said that you stole from our PC guy, Mr. PC, is a great story, and I appreciate your time today. Do you have any questions for me or anything before you go back into the green room for a bit?
We're good.
All right. You have a great day. I'm going to finish off the show, but I'm going to let you go ahead and take a sip of water in the green room. Okay.
You got it.
All right. Thanks, Charles. Appreciate everything. That was a terrific show. So with that said, I'm about ready to wrap up here. As you heard when I was talking to Charles, producer Barbie is looking to do something. I know we have another show coming up at 1:30 with a lady who lives in Australia, and she's got a fascinating story. And well, she's got a powerfully injured past. She's lived through some incredible things, and you'll hear about it soon. But I look forward to having that show with you at 1:30, and then I've got another show coming on tomorrow around noon, and I'll send you out some information on it. But thanks everybody for being here. You practical advice is spot on. So let's leave it with this. Loving this live session. Your practical advice is spot on. Thank you. But I know you were talking to Charles. So have a great day. Go out and say hi to somebody. Shake somebody's hand. Create a vibe, around you that is much better than the places that you go. Share an energy that because we all need to get together. We all need to talk about these things. That's what this show's about. And we're growing, and a lot of people are really coming into pace here, but we need more people talking to each other so they feel more free to open conversations. Because if I heard Charles was giving some great stories there, but I heard another great story that I'll close with here. The opportunity to tell somebody some information that so talking is nothing more than passing on information that you have knowledge of. That's good. But a real gift, a real present is to listen to somebody and learn something that you didn't know before. So thank you for being on the show here. I'm Rod Duff, Insights and Straight Talk. Producer Barbie someday will pop in here. She's out in California, and that's for permanent. We're going to actually move this office out there too. But in the meantime, I love you all. Have a great day. Come to my YouTube channel on YouTube at Rod Duff 1939. With that, I'm out. Have a great day, man.